What is up, guys? Welcome back to Disclosure Team with me, your host, Vinny Adams. The following is a catch-up with Chrissy Newton. Chrissy is one of the hosts of the show Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction, currently airing on Discovery Channel. If you enjoy this content, please just take a second to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. I really appreciate all of your continued support. I hope you enjoy this interview with Chrissy Newton. So Chrissy, welcome back to the show. How's things been?
Things are good. How are things with you?
Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. It's been a very busy time, probably for both of us, but certainly for yourself. You mentioned earlier before we hit record that, we hadn't spoken in a while. And I think that's just a testament to the busyness.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think everybody has been busy. Also, there's like within life in general, but there's also been like a little bit of a UFO lull, I'll say. Not as exciting it was like last year and the year before, but still exciting. And there's stuff that hopefully will coming out. Lou Elizondo's book will be coming out soon. So there's stuff going on, but it's just, it's not as quiet. It's not as massive it was. And maybe we deserve a break. That's what that is
I
too.
agree. No, absolutely right. I mean, we're almost upon the anniversary of David Grush's testimony in front of Congress. I think that's in a couple of days' time. So, it's always going to be hard to follow up a year like we had last summer. So, that makes perfect sense. But like I said, you've been busy. We're obviously here to talk about this new TV series that's currently airing, which is Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction, with yourself and Mitch Horowitz. But before we do that, I know you've been to a couple of UFO conferences this year, and I just wondered if you could just give us a little brief overview of what they were like.
Yeah, for sure. So this year I was at the Roswell UFO Festival, specifically with the Roswell Daily Record. I know that Toby and everyone out there too, Vinny. They're so amazing. Like I have such a heart for that team at the Roswell Daily Record. And I was there speaking with Mitch Horowitz about Discovery's channels, Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. And then I was at the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. I'm thankfully a member, a part of that coalition. So I go there. I attend every year if it's either virtually or online. So it's been fun. I love both conferences. They're both so different. They're both obviously stooped in counterculture within the UFO community, but then you have like these other side where you get lots of people that are enthusiasts of the topic and just want to learn more and meet people and feel like they're part of something. They're also at the Mecca Center of activity is in Roswell, right? So there's so much like lore around that. And then you get SCU, which you get all these different academics in one room together where you sit together for 3 to 4 days and you make friendships, you make relationships, and you exchange information. And it is for sure my favorite UFO conference that I go to yearly. I'm very happy to be a member of it.
Excellent. I mean, I'm a huge proponent for UFO conferences. It's always, great to see people speaking, but my takeaway is always that the people you meet, the connections you make, can be very valuable over time, and it's just nice to be amongst a lot of like-minded people. So yeah, that's really good. So let's jump into this TV series. That's airing now. So what can you tell us about the kind of the format of the show first and foremost?
Yeah, so the format of the show, you could say it kind of leans towards a 90s vibe, a little bit of a talk show. So you have, well, first of all, explain the concept. It's myself and another host, Mitch Horowitz. I look at this from a data perspective, a journalistic perspective, and he looks at, as my opposite from an esoteric perspective and a historian perspective. So we talk to people that have had encounters from the first to fourth, and if you want to include the fifth kind, and we analyze their data if they have the data. And data can run from testimonies all the way down to photos, images, sounds, footprints we've had, material. We've had tons of things that we've been able to analyze. So I work with a group of people where we analyze that material, and then the person that is who the experiencer is comes in and they're looking for more information. So it could be, what did we find through the data, along then what our opinions are. So I would like to express like these are our opinions to a degree. I have data, so I usually try to just go off the data. Data doesn't lie, let's be honest. And I'm not a skeptic. I think most people would think if you watch this show, you might think me as a skeptic, almost as a debunker, I would find, but in a positive way. Like Vinny, I love this topic. I talk about it. I truly believe that there is something going on. I think something is happening. I don't know what it is, but I know that we have, probably 90% of things that we can prove, which are identifiable or come to some scientific understanding. And then we have like that 1%, or if you want to even say 10%, that we're not sure of the anomalous. And that's really what I care about. And I think a lot of us do here in the UFO space. And I try to find the data. So I'm either debunking or I'm saying like I have no data that can contribute to it saying it's a UAP or not. So it's an interesting show. It's never been done before as a format. We filmed super quickly. So it's the first season and it was an interesting experience. And, I learned a lot about myself and especially what others want the experience to be, if it's a UFO or not, and how some people get really excited and how some people get really scared. And you never know who's going to walk through the door and you never know what they're going to say and you never know how they're going to react. So I think that's a big part of it. If anything of the show, the experiencers make it and the reactions are I've learned a lot about the spectrum of society across North America that have had these experiences and how they feel if they want it to be a UFO or not.
Sure, and this was filmed in Roswell as well, wasn't it?
It
And
was,
I
yeah, at
guess,
the front.
am I right in saying a lot of the people featured in the show, the experiences, came from all over the country?
They did, yeah, and so we had people all the way from South America, no Canadians. I think I was the only Canadian on the show from what I know of, but across North America, I guess including myself and Mitch, and so you've had spectrums all the way from the East Coast to West Coast, South America, in the middle of the country too, pretty much everywhere. So it was interesting to meet we did about 5 interviews a day, sometimes 6, and for 2 weeks, and it's a lot of people that you meet at one time, getting stuck into each other's tractor beams. So, there was a lot of that and a lot of learning and a lot of, um, heartfelt moments that you just kind of wanna hold those people and you wanna protect them. That's how I felt at times too, because you just feel horrible for them.
Of course, yeah, some people, yeah, no, well, that's it. I mean, I've spoken to people, and you do see the traumatic side of what they've experienced. So, you obviously you're no stranger to interviewing. You've done it an awful lot. But did this feel in any way different to your sort of more podcast style interviewing?
That's a great question. For sure it was different. I prefer in person. But I rather not so much that I didn't like obviously doing it this way. This way was only focused on data. And that was my job on that side and looking at the facts. And so I didn't always get to lean into the cultural side of things that I really love. And there's a different, I think I come off a little bit more colder than I really am in person. And, right? It's the beauty of editing, let's be honest. So that really was hard for me because they only want to show me in one light. And, Mitch, it's kind of like good cop, bad cop in a way. And I'm not like that in real life. Like I'm a kid, I'm a pussycat. Like, let's be honest, I'm very tough in certain ways and I'm very committed to my convictions and obviously from civil rights to you name it and things that matter to me. So I will always fight for those things and transparency and justice for sure. But that is qualities of myself. But really, I'm just a care bear in real life. Like I love talking to people. I love learning their stories. I like spending time with them. I like connecting with people. So that element didn't show in the on camera and hopefully one day I get to do that. I know Vinny, you're great at it too. Like that connection with people is so important and it's amazing when it's in real life and I prefer doing it in real life. So, you know, I I hope I get to do more of that and I get to show my other side, not so much my data analytic colder side, I guess if you want to call it, or clinical side. I think my family is called it clinical, and I'm like afraid. I'm like, but I don't control the editing, right? They do, so they didn't show the other moments, but that's TV, right? It's not my project. I'm only in it. Yeah.
Of course, of course. Yeah, I did a show with the BBC towards the end of last year, and it only recently aired as well. And again, they portray me with that kind of pushing more towards, not I suppose a debunker, but really pushing my views, looking at human-made technology, which obviously it could well have been, but it didn't show any of my beliefs at all. So I feel what you're saying there completely. But how do you deal with skepticism, both from yourself and from others?
Yeah, I think for skeptic, like being a skeptic and dealing with skeptics, um, like we look at Mick West, right? And is one of them. He would, is a skeptic, but he actually he follows the topic. He likes the topic of UFOs. He just likes debunking stuff all the time. So, there's a place for everybody, right? There's a place for skeptics because if we didn't have skeptics, we would just believe everything we've heard or say. And people need to tell us when something isn't accurate. I want to learn from my mistakes or I want to learn so we can grow. It's about how a skeptic goes about. If a skeptic attacks, then I have no time for it, right? Like I have no time for you attacking me if you think I'm wrong. You can be diplomatic and we can discuss something and maybe find a common ground, or you can open up new material for me that I never even thought of. Along with like vice versa, like I can open up new thoughts for them. So yeah, if you attack, I have no time for it. But if you want to educate and have an open conversation, I'm here for it every day. And I'm glad we have skeptics in the UFO space because there's such a spectrum of what is happening and what people believe and what they think is going on that we need to have those people that sometimes shake us and wake us up to say, hey, we can't always get our heads in the clouds. Sometimes let's keep our feet on the floor. So, and again, like I just people that attack people's character and don't give the chance for a rebuttal as well, then I don't have time for that too. Just because they obviously, in my perspective, have something else going on rather than just trying to attack people that are trying to do meaningful work. That's it.
Yeah, I completely agree again. And one of my closest friends, Dr. David Clark, who we work together, we meet regularly. He's known for his skepticism, but the way he does it is valuable. He's never attacked anybody. He's kind of brought me down to a nice middle ground as well. And I've had to rein myself in. Thank you to him because it's made me a better researcher as well. So I think you're right. Skeptics are very much needed. So how do you stay objective when dealing with almost sensational or emotional sort of cases?
Yeah, that's hard because you want to like hold people. So in this perspective in the show, if somebody doesn't have things that I can't analyze and I just have their testimony, Mitch unfortunately takes that data point for me because it's actually a data point, a testimony is, but he takes it from a cultural perspective on the show. But for me, when even just talking to anybody, understanding that what I feel and think doesn't matter, but I can hold space for those other people to listen to them and to believe them too, right? Just because the data doesn't point to it doesn't mean that I personally don't believe them. I've heard lots of stories from people that have had experiences that are extremely credible and they don't have any data to show me a video, audio, nothing, right? So, but I still believe that they've experienced something. Do I know what it is to a degree? No, I can't tell them if it's happening in their mind or if it's happening to them or, if it's real or not or whatnot. Nobody can, right? Until we actually are able to like, be in the room potentially when those things happen. So, but I'm open to so many people have experienced these things, like millions of people, billions of people at this point in time in history. So something's going on. So hearing those data points are important, especially like when you're hearing audio from like a police call. Like I've listened with other people hearing those police calls and you're like, this is wild. Like somebody's actually seeing or experiencing something, right? With a group of people and or sometimes on their own. And it's really compelling. So stories are compelling. And like I love storytelling and I love doing it and listening to it. So I'm here for it. But my emotions and what I think doesn't explain what's happening, right? But I think it's important because if we don't give empathy and space for those people, then like no one's going to share their story. Who would want to, right? Like I know I wouldn't if I wanted, if I, we know this ridicule has been going on for history. No one wants to be ridiculed. So I try my best to like in the show with people, even though they don't show it, to hopefully give them a space where they felt comfortable, where they could talk to me after or before the show. Sometimes we couldn't do it before the show because the producers wouldn't want us to, but at least within the filming and then after, I would talk to people about their experience a little bit more because I do care, and I think it's important that we hear them. Yeah.
And did you I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't seen any of the episodes. It's not available yet here in the UK.
Not yet. It will though, I think probably later this summer. Yeah.
I'd imagine so. We usually get things a few months later. I have been, looking at as many clips over, ever since sort of it was first, shown in the last sort of month or since June, I think, when the first episode aired. So I've kept up with a lot of the clips. I'm familiar with some of the cases, but did you find that there were any people clearly disappointed with the answers that they got?
Oh, for sure. We had lots of people, yeah, and that was really hard too because you don't know what someone's gonna say if they want it to be a UFO experience or not, but sometimes they wouldn't if I had to drop the bomb, and that's, like, something I'm not used to doing. Like, I it's, like, totally opposite of my character to go in and drop a bomb on somebody, right? So I try to do it the best way I possibly could by delivering hard information and to try to empathize, but it's it's hard. Like, it's really, really hard. So, people didn't yeah, there was a lot of experiences where people wouldn't wanna believe it. They're like, "No, no, no, I saw a UFO," because it means something to them if they had a connection to their father or family member. Like, who am I to tell them that that wasn't real? But what I can say is the data is here, but it doesn't make your experience not valid, right? Like, you've had multiple other experiences too, but it's really hard, and there's a lot of times I felt people's hearts were somewhat ripped out, and you're just kind of like, all right, you want to bring them back to before they walk out the door, you want them to say like, hey, like, this just doesn't discredit, we're just trying to find answers. That's it. So I think Mitch and I try to do the best we possibly can to deliver, or at least myself, deliver hard information, which is like so crazy that you get the women to do it. Like, times are changing.
So how would you address the potential for kind of any hoaxes, or, if you kind of got a sniff of someone who's being disingenuous? Did that come up at all?
Oh,
And if it
yeah.
didn't, oh, it did.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're gonna show it though, because 'cause I'm only in episode 5 tonight, so there's 7 episodes. So episode and one of the people that have come in, I can't if they're in it or not, I'm not sure. But it was 2 younger people that came in, I'll say that, and for sure they were lying to us. And she literally told me her motive. She told me her motive was to get on TV because she wanted to promote her husband's work. So I was like, I know, like, yeah, oh, honey, I'm like, you told me your motive. Like, if she was lying, they were lying and making this up and probably seeing if they could say they hoaxed us. But I saw through that. Also, not just because like, hey, I'm an amazing investigator. It's because I'm 40 years old and they were 20. It's like it's my age. I'm like, you're old enough to be my daughter. Like, it's and I'm old enough to be your mom. I can probably see when you're fibbing me a little bit, and women to women there. So there was that, and then there was times where we had to look at photo evidence to see if a photo was like changed in any way. And so we did do that. Last episode, it was an amazing photo, and it was in Peru, and it was and I guess spoiler alert for anybody, but it was an amazing picture. And you can probably see it on Discovery's or mine too, but it's on my Instagram and my Twitter, but it's also on Discovery's Twitter, the image. And she was on a train going through Peru, and it's the only train that goes through Peru. And I think you've been to Peru, haven't you, recently?
Not
It
Peru, no.
was it Brazil? Colombia.
Colombia.
That's it, Colombia. And so sorry, I was thinking it was Peru for some reason. And they were riding in the train. Her, or I don't know if she's a friend, I can't remember, but I remember she was riding in the train, and I asked her, were you in this train? Anyway, you see an image that she took outside the window, but when she developed it, she sees this like UFO saucer shaped, like yellow lit up image. And you're like, when I first saw it, I was like, this is beautiful. Like, this is so gorgeous. And I want this to be a UFO so badly because it would have been it would have been one of the best images outside of yours in the Kelvine. Like, it would have been right next to it. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow. And so when I looked through like the debunking and was talking to our experts, we ended up finding out that this is wild. And this is how good experts were that I was getting to work with and reading their research. There's one train in Peru, and in the train in Peru, there's a light at the top of the ceiling. The ceiling light was reflecting off the window. And when she took a picture of the reflection in off the glass. And so it looked like a UFO. And if you want the picture, I'll send it to you too. You can clip it in here
Please,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
please do.
And it was like, holy crap. Like I was like, I want this to be real so bad because it was a great story, a hotspot for UFOs. She had a picture of it, a close up picture of it. It was gorgeous. But when you looked at the 2 images of the light from the train to the actual UFO and you put them side by side, you could see that it was a light.
A match.
Yeah, it was a match.
Wow.
What does that look like to you?
What?
this top image compared to your image?
Oh, it's kind of similar.
That's the light that's at the top of the train, reflecting off the window. Wow, right? Like, that debunk, I was like, "Wow," like, that's a good one. So, yeah, there was tons of different stories, and yeah, and people reacted differently to them, but just exciting. Just those ones are exciting. I wish we had every single case was like that, but it wasn't, unfortunately, right?
That's really cool. And you mentioned they're experts. So give us a breakdown of kind of the people that you were able to utilize to help you kind of come up with your conclusions.
Yeah, we had some people that were former ATIP. We had some people that were working with us that were part had worked with Discovery before. Ben Hansen contributed to some of the work. Mark D'Antonio contributed to some of the work. So we had like a lot of video analysts. If anyone knows Mark's D'Antonio's work from video and photo analysis, he's like unmatched. So there was a lot of that. Plus, like we had people looking at chemical compounds and dispositions of elements. Like there were so many different people that and experts that really did help. We had people I even and I won't say who, I even brought a skeptic in once because one of the producers was like, "I think this is a UFO." And I said, "I don't think it is. I think it's Starlink." And I'm like, but it doesn't match the time and date." And I was like, it's like, well, Starlink you can see for like I think 7 to 9 days, and it was like around the 10th or 11th date, and I'm not sure if this one aired or not, but and it had or not that it hasn't yet, but I said to them, no. And when I'm in the workroom, while we're breaking down these segments, I'm like, no, it's not. So I emailed a skeptic and I was like, can you help me out here? Like, not even a joke. And I was like, I definitely think this is Starlink. And I am not going on TV saying that when something Starlink is a UFO, like forget that. Like, it kills my credibility and everyone else's and the Discovery Channel. Let's be honest. So I emailed them. They emailed back and they said, I told them where was this the date and time? Was it over Arizona? And they said, yes, it was. And they sent me back all the imaging. And I was like, thank you so much. I said, you helped me prove that. This is great. Now I can go forward. And, it's so funny because you have other producers and everyone who wants it to be like, we want it to be a UFO. And I'm like, I don't want it to be a UFO when it's not. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't make sense. We shouldn't be saying things are when they're not. And so it happens. And it takes a group of people, and it's not their fault. It's no one's fault. It's being like, oh, I'm right, they're right. It's just, no, you have to double check your work. You have to talk to other people. You have to analyze things properly. And I think majority of the cases we did prove that were not UAP, but there are some for sure in there that were like totally anomalous. And I was like, this is definitely something. But yeah, there was tons of different researchers. So it was fun to work with them or call them too, or even just to read their data that came through, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I totally understand the Starlink thing because I was recently in the US and I'd never seen so many Starlink, with my eyes, and I'd seen this whole blanket of them in the sky, but I'd seen these three rotating lights, and I was like, straight out with the app that tells you what it is, thinking this isn't Starlink because all the other Starlink are stationary. But it turned out it was Starlink. And anyone that wouldn't have a phone it would be mind blowing some of the way these lights were rotating. So it's tricky with Starlink. It really is.
It is, and to be honest, if you've never seen it, I don't blame people, like, pilots can't even sometimes recognize it, so I don't blame people. We had a family come in, and they ended up showing me Starlink, and instantly when I pulled out the page that was gonna be a UFO, I'm like, "That's Starlink." And they don't know these things. The average person doesn't. They're just learning, right? And that's the point of the show too. And it's nothing to be embarrassed of. It's like everyone does that. How many times have we point to something being like, I don't know what that is, and it half the time it's a balloon. Like, let's be honest, right? Not all of them are, but sometimes they are. And like, how are we detecting balloons too? Gosh, we had a Chinese spy balloon over Canada and the States and South America, and how many have probably been over there, and people would assume it's anomalous, or they weren't even detected by the American government because they weren't even on the radar. So, everybody makes mistakes. It's just, better to say, hey, I didn't know what it was and we proved it, or I don't know what it is and we haven't proved it. Nothing wrong with either.
Exactly. Especially if equipment isn't calibrated to look for a certain object at a certain altitude or of a certain size, then absolutely.
I can't believe balloons weren't though. That's the thing. I still have a hard one on that though too, where I'm like, how would you not still classify balloons? Like, and also the balloons are huge. They have like, I think the payload on one of them was the size of the Statue of Liberty or something like that. Like, just,
Wow. I know one
yeah, it
of
was
them was like a school bus at least, which is big
so that,
enough.
which I think is like the size of the Statue of Liberty or something like that. It was massive. It was like a massive payload. And I'm like, that's wild, right? Like, but now we know better.
Of course, of course. But obviously, the show was in Roswell, and I think one of the episodes that has already aired was a gentleman, Frank Kimbler, that brought in some materials. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Frank, I believe, has had this material for a while. So he came in, and when we did the analysis on it and we looked at the chemical composition or the element composition, we found out that it was pure aluminum. And pure aluminum is not commonly found all the time within, like, on the planet. It is used sometimes occasionally for aerospace, but it's just so fragile and so weak that they don't use it. They usually mix it with other types of aluminum to make a stronger aluminum composition. And so that's what he ended up finding it. So it doesn't, we have to do another test. We did the one test, and the second test now will be if it's off planet. And so we have to show that it's like, that it's come from not here, it's come from space. And if that happens, I'll scream. And if we do a second season, I'll freak out because I got to touch it. And so I was like, wow, right. And you're like, this is cool if this actually is what it is. But again, I said to Mitch and to the rest of the producers, I'm not getting too excited yet until we do a second test to find out if it's off planet. And if we find out if it's off planet, then yeah, Frank better hide that very quickly. And also the piece did show it was pure aluminum, but it also had elements of some kind of impact or explosion impact on it. So they could see that. Yeah. But also that can mean many things too, right? So we have to do the next test. Yeah. Maybe if we get a season 2, then we'll do something like that and be able to take Frank's research to a next level. But it's too expensive for him to do it personally. That's why he hasn't done it, because it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think sometimes, or not hundreds, thousands of dollars at times to do it. So it makes sense. Let a show pay for it and see if in which you can get the analysis back. So I think he's done 2 analysis. I believe Ryan Sprague has actually talked to Frank before on a show he did with the CW network. And then we were the second people to talk to Frank. So we'll see. Hopefully we get to do the next test.
That'd be wonderful. That'd be so good. And obviously, he found it at the alleged crash site there in Roswell. Did you get to go out and visit the crash site
I
at all?
did. I went with Toby. Toby was so nice. And Paul is like oh jeez. Sorry. Jeez. Forgot that I put my timer on to remember him. I went with Paul and I went with Toby, 2 amazing friends now in Roswell. Paul does the Roswell tours, and Toby's obviously people know from the Roswell Daily Record. So I said, I'm out here. Can you take me if you have time? And they did. And I jumped in the car, and it was myself, Toby's partner, and then along with, I believe, I'm not sure if his wife or his partner, but and along with Paul, and we went out there, and we were just a group of us that ended up getting together and like walking around and looking for stuff and geeking out, and it was just a good day. It was such a good day. We spent hours out there, and I was like, I feel very lucky that I got to go. If this is the alleged site, not many people get to walk on this, and if it really happened and it is true, like, there's only so many of us that have been out there, right? So felt very lucky, and it was just really nice to go with locals. I also could ask questions too about the lore. I asked about the nurse, that went missing after, like, knew a lot, right, a lot about the Roswell incident, and I found that to be really interesting. So I learned more about that from Paul and from Toby, because I'm not a local, right? So I only know what I can research, but when you hear the stories from the locals, it's really cool. And yeah, so we got to do that and just have a blast, and it was just fun. Just a fun day. And we brought out metal detectors and did our thing. Yeah.
I mean, it does. The whole place of Roswell just has this air of just something special about it, doesn't it? I mean, obviously there's the aliens everywhere and that, which is, probably considered a little bit over the top. But I think that's part and parcel of the fun of it, and it has to be fun sometimes. But did you get a chance to visit the museum there in Roswell as well?
I did, yeah. One of my days off, I went to the museum and walked around. I actually I went to the spacewalk too. Did the little, cheesy spacewalk where everything's, like, lit up and fluorescent and it's, like, glow in the dark. I went to that. I went to the museum. I spent a fair amount of time in the museum. I just the history is really great, and then we get into the pop culture side, and then they get into the science side. Like, I think they did a really great job, to be honest. The one alien exhibit, though, with the aliens and the UFO that makes noises and comes out, I laughed a couple times on that one. You know, it's like you gotta macheese it. Why not? But yeah, I did. I went to see locals. Oh, I went to the gem shop too, where they have like stones. And this is so random, and I suggest everyone goes. It's one of the biggest, like, geologist kind of stores I've ever been in, or stone stores, or gems and crystal stores. So I walked in, I was like, I'm gonna buy like, I'm in Roswell, I should buy some form of type of rock, I thought, to take back with me. And I took, like, a little piece of, like, the Roswell area too. I took a little rock back with me. But I was like, I should just get something from a gemstone. I was like, or a gem store. And I was like, let's see what calls to me. So I'm walking around and this store is like massive. And I'm like, what's going to call to me so I can buy it? And I look down and there's this case that has all these fossils in it. And they're like dinosaur fossils and rocks and all these things. And I look down and I see this bumpy thing. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, so I call the guy over and I'm like, what is this? And he's like, it's, it's fossilized poo. And I'm like, I'll buy it. I have it. I can go grab it if you want me to. And so I was like, "That's what calls to me. It's the fossilized poo." So what I ended up doing is I went back on site with the producers and I went, "Okay." I said, "Come here." I said, "Hold this." And they're like, "Okay." I said, "Now kiss it." And so then everybody's kissing it in the production room, and I'm like, "Now just, like, rub it." And they're like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "It's fossilized poo." And they're like, Ah. See the face of, like, disgust at first or like, "Ugh," and I laughed, but it was, so now I keep it on my mantle above, so what I did the same thing at a watch party with some of my friends when they came over the first episode, and the Roswell is, Kim Frank, Kimbler is the first up. So I gave them I said, "Please, everybody touch this." It's been a good gag.
You've kind of just given it away now, because anyone watching this now, if they see you at a conference, they just will, with caution.
Exactly. Chris is gonna be walking around with fossilized poo, and she's gonna make you kiss it. So, but it was fun, and I thought it was hilarious. But it actually, like, it looks really cool. Like, it's a talk piece. Like, and when people come to my house and they touch it, and they're like, "What is this?" and they pick it up, I'm like, "This is fantastic." Maybe it's more funny for me for them.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I mean, I think anyone with a good sense of humor will understand afterwards that it's worth the laugh. So, so tell me, out of all of the people you spoke to on the show, was that what was? Or you don't have to tell me if it hasn't aired, but was there any cases that was the most surprising outcome, whether mundane or exciting, something that really kind of was you were not expecting?
Yeah, I would say there's one case. I would say what I feel is one of the best UFO cases, and I would say alleged cases, was a trans medium. It was off of Catalina Island. Yeah, it was the evidence was amazing. He had a video. He had a triangular UFO video. He was a man that lived on his boat with his partner, and he's been on the water majority of his life. He like lives and works on the water. He lives on this boat off of Catalina. He knows all the coast guards. He knows all all the activity that's going on. That's military or naval activity. And so what ends up happening is he sends this video, and we're watching it. And he says that I believe that allegedly it came from the ground. Like he's seen UFOs in the past come underneath him in the water with lights, but then he's seen this thing come out of the water and into the air. And I'm like, you're looking at a transmedium UFO. It's wild, dude. And he's extremely credible. Then he sees it that evening. He's on his boat, and then his partner, she's on another boat, and she calls him and says, "Are you seeing this?" And they're talking, and they're like, "Yes, well, this thing is going on." The Coast Guard sees it. and says like what is going on and documents it. Then we look at all the activity, the naval activity that was happening, or any like Air Force kind of activity. And on barges, they were doing explosive, but on low water barges. It wasn't up in the air. There was no flare activity. There was nothing. So we have this triangulation of three people seeing it, which we all know that we want from all different points of view. We have video evidence that we can analyze that shows that there's something. He has three of the five observables that when I spoke to him about it. And then, yeah, he's extremely credible. So when he walked away, and I wish they did, this was on episode, I think it was episode 3, that part the story's in, but I'm like, I wish they did something longer on it, because I was like, this is amazing. I was like, do you know what we have here, people? And everyone was like, nah, it's good, but there's other ones. And I'm like, no, this is it. This is it. This is it. So for me, and for people who love UFOs, you're always going to go for experience or the story, because experiencers make the show. It's not us, right? It's not us at all. So when he came to me, I was like, this is amazing. Like, you definitely saw something. And especially in Catalina Island, and historically, like, unbelievable. But even then, off the mic with him, or off camera, I spoke with him, and he said, I've seen these things underneath the water consistently, like underneath me. And I'm like, that's insane. So yeah, he saw something. Great guy too, and just like good storytellers and really compelling. So I want more of those. If I could sit with, the nice thing about doing a show is that there's vetting that goes with it. So, I wish I would have was able to vet, because I didn't get to. That wasn't my job. My job was to obviously look at data and analytics, and from a journalistic perspective. Um, but yeah, I would love to, next time if we get to, I'd be able to help vet the material, because how many good stories you can tell based on that. So yeah.
Do you think that that'll make it out into the kind of community, that footage or anything? Will it? 'Cause I'd love to look I mean, obviously, it'll be in the show, but I'd love to get, maybe the raw data with all the information. I think it'd
Yeah,
just be
maybe what
great.
I'll do is I can always reach out. It's a great idea. It's just time and stuff too. I'll reach out to him and say, "Let's do a bigger story on this," right? Because it is. It would be a wonderful feature story. So it's a great idea, Vinny. There's a couple people, but I feel he would be one of the best. And then just even going deeper into the analysis too. We did a really good job, I think, with that team on that one, because we had so much data that we could look at. And thankfully, with the naval and and everything else, you can really dive deep, because all of that stuff has to be documented, right? All the naval activity that they're doing. So within that area, if you're thinking you're seeing flares of some degree, it's going to be reviewed, because it's a big area, but it's not massive. You know what I mean? It's right. Like, you can observe it and monitor those areas, and there's so many different points to triangulate. So yeah, we should. I'm like, it would be a great idea. It would be a good project to do with a group of people moving forward, right? Get the people that we had now, and bringing more people on to look at the analytics.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, the UFO community, they're volatile. They're hard to please, and there's always criticisms, no matter what you do, no matter how good your motives are. And how do you think this show balances that kind of sensationalist entertainment side of the industry compared to the seriousness of the topic? Do you think the balance was kind of met?
I would have done it differently, if it was my choice, and that's just an honesty. I don't get to produce it, because I know when we talk about these topics, how rich they are. I find that they try to make it a little more black and white when there's more gray in that, and that's something that throughout the entire show, Mitch is not a UFO guy. He is a historian who looks at things from esoteric perspectives. My job is I report about UFOs, but I also report about science and technology, and I just love the topic, right? And I love being around people that love the topic and learning and listening to stories. So I wish they showed that gray a little bit more, but the idea of the show was to be able to have two different, if you merged Mitch and I, we'd be one person. You know what I mean? They split our identities is kind of what that is, right? You do that a lot in television shows, stock characters. Sex and the City is like, it makes up one woman, right? When you have all their different personalities. So I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
right? Like that's kind of what they did with us, is that technically we be one person who's researching this from, a different perspective, from an esoteric perspective and also like a scientific perspective. And that's what we should be doing. We should be looking at this from open-minded, but we have to have some form of they wanted verdict. I don't like that outcome. You don't really see me saying a verdict. Mitch does more in the show, which I'm actually happy about, because I think that there's more gray and there's way more, and it's not black and white. And we know that we're just trying to find more information to be able to prove what these things are, to have a better understanding, and let the scientific community, hopefully, the academic and science communities, help us have a better understanding of what we're looking at and what we're what it is. But it is. There's sensationalism, and you can't get away from that in entertainment. My hope is one day, and hopefully this is a stepping stone that I can do other things where I can get away from sensationalism a little bit and start doing more news, or just pushing entertainment in the direction that's more factual, less sensational.
Yeah. I mean, it's been around for so long, and I think it will always have a place, let's say. And my only hope is that it just turns more people onto the subject, whether it's entertainment, sensational, or anything in between all of the different areas. So I'm all for it. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for me watching on, turning on a lot of TV series and stuff many years ago. So I certainly wouldn't be one to knock it. But like I said, we know what the UFO community is like. So can't always please them.
Yeah, everyone's gonna, and to be honest, I wish I could edit, and show different sides of myself and Mitch, and also have even different cases at times, but we can't, and hopefully if the show does, it will grow into be something that is more informative. The one thing I did do, but I couldn't do with all the cases, because for ET experiences or experiencers that have of alleged extraterrestrial experiences, I can't use the 5 observables because it doesn't make sense, right? Like, it just doesn't compute for that. But with other cases, I could use the 5 observables. And so I did talk about that, but they didn't show it they did not cut any of those things yet into the show. And that to me is a little hard. I wish they did that, because the 5 observables are so important for people to understand and know to how to identify a UFO. Like, that's like outside of like photo evidence, video evidence, testimony, and like mass sightings and social media evidence, and media footage. That's like number one, right? Like straight from the Pentagon. So I think that's hopefully next season. If we get that, then they understand that that's a direction we need to go. And then I think people within the UFO space, or even community that might have hated it, might be like, okay, this is actually progressing in the right way. So we'll see. I hope I get to do the job where I get to inform, not as much debunk, but I get to inform. What's my goal. That's what my goal would be. But
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that a lot. So for anybody, who may have watched the show and thinks, I've seen something, I want to speak to someone, what advice would you give to them for their kind of first step with, sharing their information or story?
yeah, it's a great question. I would say for sure talk to MUFON or any of the other databases. There's lots of databases out there that are privately owned and not selling your information. I know SCU is in the moment of creating one right now, that I think is, yeah, which is really great. And I would say go look at SCU's database that they should be coming out with soon. I hope I can say that. It was public in a conference, so I imagine we can. Right. So there's tons of other. Micah Hanks actually has an app from the Debrief. He created it himself, or not an app, but a website that you can go to and be able to submit sightings. So first, I would say submit your sightings so we have the data and the analytic points. If you have any images, video, testimony, any of that, submit it all, and then go and do your own research too. Look into understanding how to identify a UAP, and then obviously tell people. I think it's important that we talk about it with each other to like destigmatize it, and talk about it with people you feel are a safe space to have those conversations, or find people within the UFO community, or look to academics, and also if you're having a hard experience or a hard time with anything that you've experienced from a UFO, or you think extraterrestrial or interdimensional based, go seek help and talk to a therapist. Like, I think all those things are great, because they'll have a better understanding of what this means to self, because a lot of people question who they are. And I did see that sitting with them, questioning their own mental health, questioning their own, what this means. What does this mean? Why am I special? All of those things. And so I think it's important to talk to people about it, because other people will have good advice. They'll tell you how to be able to potentially rationalize it if you need to, or to be able to talk to others that have had the experience so you can find community.
Yeah, I agree. There are some very good groups out there that can really help. So that's great. Well, Chrissy, listen, thank you so much. Before I let you go, I just wondered if you have anything coming up that we can look forward to. Any plans for the rest of 2024?
I just did Ancient Aliens, which I think is really cool. Yeah, I was talking about SETI, so hopefully, and I think I should be in two other segments coming out. We'll see. I'll get a message to say which ones. I'm hopefully they put me in the Jacques Vallée segment, because I ended up getting to speak about Jacques, if I'm allowed to talk about that. But I'm hoping that that's one of them. But that's really about it. Just doing stuff at the Debrief, contributing, working, looking at maybe doing a fun feature piece about UFO Steve Anderson, who I met, that has the UFO that rides around. I think we all saw him. When I saw him at the festival, I like ran to the man and I was like, we're going to be friends. And so he drove me to the airport in the little UFO, and I got to know him and his partner so well, and their story and why they do this. So I think in the next week or two, I'm going to write about that and share that story, because it's a really good story to talk about how these two people came together and how they fell in love because of UFOs, which I'm like, oh, and how they like love it so much, and his love for it, but also his slogan is "Smiles for Miles," and so he's just trying to do this because we live in such a hard world right now, and he wants to be able to bring joy and fun and laughter to it, and he does this, and he loves cars. And he's former police, and he's former government, I believe, as well. I think he's a former vet, so he's experienced a lot, and he just wants to share goodness, and I want to help him share that. So I think I'm going to tell that story with some video footage. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Really heartwarming. Really good. Well, Chrissy, thank you so much. As always, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And yeah, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And we'll speak soon.
That sounds good, Vinny. Always good to see you.
Thank you to everyone watching, as always. Really appreciate it. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you don't already, and we will see you on the next one. Take care and goodbye.